Hi everyone, today in Integrated Math 2, we're going to go over Chapter 4, Lesson 4. Here are the objectives. Make sure you write them down in your notes. Alright, so as you see, we have a couple different operations with radical expressions. So we have the operation of addition, which as you see here, if we have two of the same things in the square root radical here, that we can combine them. So notice this A and the C can be combined because they're going to be both be multiplied by the square root of B in this case, which you can see right here. We have the subtraction, which is the same idea, but now you're subtracting. And then we have the same thing with B. But notice what's inside the radical does not have to be the same. When you're multiplying, you could just combine those two together. Alright, so let's try example 3. It says we want to simplify 2 times the square root of 6 minus the square root of 24. So let's go ahead and write this down. Alright, well, I do notice that the square root of 24, it probably could be simplified a bit. So I'm going to kind of show arrows that this is going to be split up and simplified a bit. So I know that if I was to make a factor tree here, 24 would be 6 and it would be 4. And then within that 4, there would be 2 and 2. And between the 6, it would be 2 and 3. But it can only have 2 of the same number to take it out of the square root. So in this case, I have 2 2s and a 6. Because 6 times 4 is equal to 24. So I'm going to have it as the square root of 6 times the square root of 4. Because that is still equal to the square root of 24. I'm just rewriting it in a way that will help us. And then I have this 2 times the square root of 6. Well, this is still the same, minus, and I have the square root of 6, and the square root of 4 is just 2. So I'm going to replace that there. Now, 2 times the square root of 6 minus 2 times the square root of 6, that is 0. And that's it, like this one. Alright, so now let's try example 4. We have the square root of 3 minus the square root of 2 times the square root of 3 plus 2 times the square root of 2. Alright, so let's go ahead and write this one down. So here we're going to use our FOIL property. So remember, FOIL is first, outer, inner, last. First terms. So square root of 3 times the square root of 3. Those are my first terms. Cross that out now. Outer. Our outer terms are, I'm going to say a plus because I don't know what sign we have yet. Square root of 3 and times 2 times the square root of 2 plus inner terms, so negative square root of 2 and then I'm going to say times square root of 3 plus our last terms, negative square root of 2 times, and our last term here is 2 times the square root of 2. Alright, so let's simplify what we have here. We have 3 times 3. We can combine those because of the properties we talked about earlier. That's a square root of 9. We can continue simplifying this, but we'll do this in the next step. Plus, well, here we multiplied by the square roots, so we can say 2, and then 3 times 2 that give us the square root of 6. I'm going to say plus, and then once again these can be combined, so 2 and 3, that multiplies to be 6, so negative square root of 6 plus, and then we have here 2 is going to stay there, and we're actually going to have a negative because we're multiplying, and then we have 2 and 2 inside the radical, so that would be the square root of 4, which will simplify. Square root of 9, that is just 3 times 3, that 3 comes out, plus 2 times the square root of 6, plus negative square root of 6, plus negative 2 times this square root of 4 will be 2. So we have 3 plus 2 square root of 6 plus negative square root of 6 minus 4. Alright, here I'm going to start combining like terms. I have like terms here, and I have like terms here. I have 3 minus 4, which is negative 1, and then 2 times the square root of 6 minus the square root of 6 is plus the square root of 6. So 2 minus 1, it's just 1 times the square root of 6. And there we go.